Welcome to John Michael's Rockbox Podcast. I'm your host, John Michael. And, I'm going to intro today's show with me asking you to don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. It would help me immensely to grab some more of these fabulous interviews that we're going to do, like the one I've got lined up for you today. And we look forward to talking with a singer-songwriter, film producer, Rex Dean, along with his sister, Laura Pritchett, who's a novelist. And we'll get into that here shortly, but make sure you watch the video to the end. And once again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Yes, it's one word, really, subscribe. And welcome to John Michael's Rockbox Podcast as we get ready for our guest. Welcome to John Michael's Rockbox Podcast, and I'm your host, John Michael. I got some great guests sitting in with me today. Singer, songwriter, film producer, Rex Dean, and his sister, which I got to say, this is great. I haven't had a duo family on ever. Laura Pritchett, and she's, can I say novelist, Laura?
Yes, novelist.
Okay.
What I do.
That's what she does. All right. So let's start with Rex and this project that you got going, a song that you did called Butterfly Girl, which you released in conjunction with your sister, Laura's novel, Three Keys. All right. And we're going to, growing up together, is this something that did you guys collaborate on a bunch of stuff as the young kids growing up?
I made my first film when I was 12 and Laura was 2. And we were 9 kids, and my mom was the cinematographer. And so all 9 kids were in the film. It's called Billy the Kid. And I was a bank robber, and Laura was a kidnap victim, if I remember correctly.
You didn't argue much, right? At 2?
Yeah, no, she had a lot to say.
I'm crying through most of it.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting. I hadn't even thought about this, Laura, but well, it's just sort of obvious, but we have always been concerned about the state of the world. And so I just finished a film which is kind of getting through its festival circuit called Space Baby and the Holy Grail, which is about 2 little kids who rebuild the Holy Grail to get a new soul for the earth. Because it needs one.
Yeah.
And there's very much of a environmental concern in the film. It's a comedy, it's a kid's feature, but it's there's a character in the film called Nature Girl, which is a little girl who was actually played by my daughter, who talks to animals and deeply takes care of and cares about nature. And so that character was also inspired by Laura, who has always had her heart and her efforts in things like protecting the river that runs through our farm, and and writing about wildfires in Colorado. So anyway, I guess we've always, coming from the middle of America and living on a farm right next to the Rockies, really informed our worldviews, I guess.
Oh, so Colorado, born and raised?
I was born in Kansas, but spent most of my childhood in Colorado. Yeah. And Laura?
That's where I was born.
Yeah.
Colorado. And where I still live.
That's where you still live. Colorado. I've always wanted to go there.
Oh, it's stunning.
Is it really?
Everywhere you look is a vista. I mean, there are, you can look the wrong direction onto the plains or onto the occasional trailer park, but pretty much anywhere you look is just beyond, beautiful.
I love nature. Nature's just outstanding. And, I will kick myself and be the first to say that I don't get out there enough to check it out. But when I do go through, and I try to as much as I can, I pay attention to things. Of course, when you're driving, you kind of got to stop sometimes and then look around. But it's not to say that you can't really notice stuff as you're going. And so, because where I live, I have to, depending on where I want to go, sometimes I'll have to go over a mountain and go through the trees and all that stuff. And that itself is just outstanding. So I love being out in nature whenever I can get out there. And so I try to do that often. So Rex, your song is it's like half the length of a Peter Frampton song. So
Yeah, I yeah, once a singer, a songwriter, a really great one who wrote some Whitney Houston songs, reached out to me a couple years ago and said, "Hey, I love your stuff. I run little songwriting clinics. I'd be happy to run one of your songs through for free. Because I can really help with a hook." Because he had done, anyways, just some amazing Whitney Houston songs, and I was like, "Oh wow!" And I started thinking, like, "Wait a minute, I'm not sure any of my songs have hooks."
uh,
And I told my daughter, I said, "I think my songs are more like stories," and she says, "They're more like epics." So what can you do? I'm trying to before I die, I'm gonna get rid of all my stuff and I'm gonna start writing 3-minute songs. So that's my goal.
there you go. And you gotta love kids because they'll just sit there and tell you like it is. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and it's just like that. So explain to me, Butterfly Girl, a little bit to all of us that are listening.
Well, it starts out literally just walking down my street in Los Feliz. Sometimes I feel like following a butterfly down the street. That little angel may be the last of her kind I'll ever meet. And this is what struck me because there's so few. All of us have seen the decline of insects, and
Yeah.
I love how songwriting goes because no matter what the subject, you're just like it goes a certain direction. And this one, it went into the direction of trying to find where to put the blame, and I more and more in my life, I'm absolutely convinced that sure, I'll recycle, sure, I drive a Prius, I'll do my part, but it has nothing to do with what we're really facing, and that is that almost all of our politicians, almost all, have let us down. We've hired them to lead us and to help us through this next century, and they
Yeah.
just take bribes, and they haven't made a single decision that helps us. So the song is kind of about my heartbreak at that, and then placing blame, because as soon as we can make it hard for them, maybe they'll stop taking bribes.
Uh,
That's hopeful, right?
one can hope. And so, yeah, and you, I guess, you've been into, I see, oh my goodness, you got a wide array of musical genres that you're into: jazz, swing, Broadway tunes, and so much more, and doing film, and you do voice, right? So,
Yeah, my latest decision, for several years, people have said to me, "You know where you belong, TikTok," and I'm like, "Oh, come on, what's that about?" And I've finally been convinced that it's going to be TikTok, and I'll give away my secret plan, which I have a headless or a headless anyway, microphone, head-worn microphone coming from Amazon today, and I'm going to ride my bicycle and my scooter and sing Italian songs and whatever I want to sing while I'm riding, so that you see a nice background. It's not just me sitting at my house. So that's my TikTok strategy. Come back in a year and we'll see if I have 1 million followers.
because you never know. And with TikTok being the way it is, I don't have a TikTok account either. But I've just kind of just held it at bay. Um, but I'll probably lean towards it at some point because everything picks up momentum, at least right now, on TikTok, much like MySpace was in one point, and then Facebook, and then Instagram, and now TikTok. And so, it's social media is just incredible. And just the fact that you can get your word across to millions of people almost overnight. So,
Yeah, it's not just I have like 30 friends who will like one of my songs, which is great. But apparently on TikTok, if 30 people like it, then they'll play it for 500, and then they'll play it for 50,000. And then, if people listen for more than 5 seconds,
for
something
sure.
like that.
Oh yeah, and it's still the old adage, word of mouth is always the best way to move forward, because when one person suggests it to some, because they don't do it to just one other person usually, and then so on and so forth, and then if everybody does that, then all of a sudden you're all over the place, and that's just from people that just share.
Well,
So
if you're listening to this podcast, word of mouth says get Laura's book, Three Keys. It is really fun to read. I just loved it. I bought it for a couple friends already. And it's not only great summertime reading, but it leaves you with a lot of thinking and growth, but not in a difficult way. It's just like a beautiful unfolding of a road trip of a woman loosely inspired by Laura, I think. Just trying to find herself. And it's just a great book. So yeah, I highly recommend you check it out.
I think that sounds fabulous. Now let's talk to Laura. Laura, hi, Laura.
How you doing?
There they are. It's like Donnie and Marie, but not. All right.
That's
So,
our tagline, Rex.
which one do you want to be, Rex?
Oh man, Donnie, man, those bright white teeth. I need that.
My sister used to love when we were growing up. We would watch Donnie and Marie, and we're not going to get off the subject too far, but she loved him in his purple socks, and he would just lay there
Oh,
and
I didn't
wait
know that.
and wait. Yeah, purple socks. It was a
Oh,
big
that'll be.
thing.
I'm gonna get some. All right.
So, Laura, author, 7 novels. Your first book is Hell's Bottom, right? Colorado. Milkweed Editions, it's got written next to. So you won the Penn USA Award for fiction and for the Milkweed National Fiction Prize. And then you were followed up by the novels Sky Bridge, Stars Go Blue, Red Lightning, and The Blue Hour. And then probably it just keeps going and going and going. And now you've got this one book that is in conjunction with your brother, Rex, and which I was reading part of that about your book. And wow, what a story about your book. Can you describe that?
You
Three
bet.
keys?
This is my 7th novel, Three Keys. Just came out from Penguin Random House. And it's about a woman who has 3 keys to homes she plans on breaking into. But she's a very polite criminal and is trying to do it right, and for good reasons. You'll have to read the novel to find out. But she's traveling across the American West and then ends up overseas, breaking into people's homes. Part of one of the themes of the book is a strong environmental ethic. And so Penguin Random House asked me to put together a book club kit, which includes, an activity and a playlist. And so I got to put all the songs that I think my main character, Amelie, would be listening to as she drives across America. And I knew I had to have my brother Rex's song, Butterfly Girl, on there, because that's just her kind of song. Because one of the themes is the environmental ethic, and this coming into a realization that a life well lived means taking care of planet Earth. And his song speaks to that so beautifully.
Wow. So it kind of works out pretty cool. I mean, I think it's great that your song, Rex, went into your sister's book, which I think is great. It's just fabulous. I like the way it
Well,
ties in.
it's I have to say, first of all, it was a great honor for her to include me. And yeah, she did a reading here in Los Angeles, just 3 blocks from my house. And so afterward, we had a little get together in my living room, and I played the song for her former students. And it turns out she had been using the song for, I guess, the last year or two in her graduate class on environmental writing. She can tell you about, but she teaches graduate students. And and so that was such a privilege. But in truth, my song is about roughly 1/1000th of the book. There's a set list of incredible songs of John Denver and Joni Mitchell and Neil Young, and then my song. And then the book itself, of course, is several years in the making, I'm sure. But what's great about having a sister who encourages you is that my whole life, I've never put out a song on Spotify. I've never released an album. I've recorded 3 or 4 albums of stuff, but I've always thought these just aren't good enough. And she said, well, whatever you think, if you get that song on Spotify by mid-June, the publisher will put it on our set list. If you don't, we can't. And so I had my first real deadline, and it was so great because it's like, well, it's not perfect, but I did it, and it's anyway, it's just great, and I think it opens the floodgates that I hope to have 20 more songs out by this time next year.
Oh, that'd be good. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, thanks.
I saw it when I went and I had the link, which we talked about this off camera about our dear friend Tracy Harper, who is the one that connects all of us in a lot of my interviews, including today with Rex and Laura. And and Tracy, thank you so much, Tracy Harper Publications. And so she sent me a link, and so I got to go check it out. And so my Spotify popped up, and I was like, oh, good gracious, I can't remember my password. Okay. It's been a while. I mean, stuff I post from this podcast, I just I post it to one place, and it just generates out, right? Including Spotify. I'm pretty sure it's still on the list. And so when I went to go look, I was like, oh, I don't remember what it was. And so, but there was another link I was able to find it and listen to prior. So well done. Good job. What a song. And
thanks.
And Laura, your book looked extremely interesting. My girlfriend is a big reader. I used to be, and I'm trying to get back into it again. But just reading part of what your book was about, I was just like, this sounds like it's going to be at least, the very least, interesting. And so, how long did it take you to write that book?
About 3 years. Each of my novels takes about 3 years.
Is it a concept that you have in your head, or is it just something that you saw or something you always thought about?
Well, I'm always daydreaming, but I happened to be at a writing residency at the Aldo and Estela Leopold House in New Mexico, which is very remote. And I was watching the sunrise and drinking coffee. And I thought, if I just stayed here, no one would notice. I could just like move into this house and no one would notice. And then, of course, I'm not going to do that because I'm fundamentally a polite person and not a criminal. But my main character, that's when I had the idea for this main character who's just going to politely drive around the West and break into people's homes and live unseen and clean up their places. But of course, adventure ensues, of course. And I hope it's a page turner. I think it's a delightful, twisty, turny tale.
It kind of sounds like it might be. And did I read somewhere in there that you talked about how we all become invisible?
Yeah, it's partly a coming of age and middle age, and having your personas taken away as you lose some of your roles that you have been playing, either as partner or in your career or parent or whatever, and then needing to like reinvent yourself so you can enter the last phase of your life with zest and vigor and joy instead of bemoaning the fact that we're all getting older. So
Yeah.
it's very much a coming of age for middle age.
I've seen that. And it's funny, when I was reading that, I was right that I had actually heard that phrase in several TV series and maybe even a movie where they talked about, and it was an elderly person says, when you get older, what happens? You just become invisible. And I was like, why? And then I read that when I was reading about your 3 keys, and I was and it just seemed it was like, well, I guess and it kind of makes sense as you get a little bit older, people start paying attention to you a little bit less because you're not out there when you were young doing whatever it is that make you get noticed, I suppose. Because when you get older, I guess we just become quieter, or maybe not as boisterous or as out front.
It could be that, and it could be culture does that to us instead of lifting up the elders and listening to the elders. And the book is a little bit of a pushback on that about that our culture, with the focus on young nubile bodies, in magazines and in Hollywood, to take a good look at that. Why do we make people invisible?
Yeah, I think that if, like, in the olden days, if we valued wisdom and experience and revered our elders, it was written into our cultures to do that. And here, since America's become almost exclusively focused on money, money, and money, then, as we get older, honestly, we don't need as much stuff. Our priorities are different, so we're not as big as spenders as the 15 and 25 and 30-year-olds. And so, if everything is shoved in our face is youth and beauty, we really literally, just as we gray, just begin to be like, oh, those old people, as people do with immigrants or with different different ethnicities or something. They're just like, oh, those people are something else, rather than what we're interested in. Anyway, but I'm all with Laura. I mean, I'm fighting the good fight, to just have fun and enjoy these final decades. And yes, her book is a page turner, in the sense that, like, every single page is interesting. You're just like, what happens next? What happens next? It took me, one day and the next day to read it, because I really, I did put it down to sleep, but it's just interesting, because it's really thoughtful, but at the same time, there's a lot going on, and so I think it's unusual in the balance that it has. That a lot of books don't have. They either just sit and you think too much, or they just have action. So it was really good.
I like that page turner where you sit there and you just like, all right, okay. I'm just going to read this last paragraph. I got to go to bed, or, I've got to leave, or whatever. And then, okay, well, okay, one more paragraph after that last one, and then that'll be it. But
Yeah.
I love those kinds of books. So, Laura, I'm looking forward to picking up your book and doing the same thing. All right, because I can, if I'm interested and I fall into a book, read it as fast. I can finish it as fast as I can read it, and and just like, oh, why did it turn dark already? Where'd the sun go? I spent my day reading, which is not a bad thing.
I love it.
I love it. Let's see. Let me see if my will allow me to screen share. I gotta find the right one. Let's do that one. And let's see if that'll pop up, and screen. Can you see that? Got LauraPritchett.com, and you can go there. You can find out all about you, right, Laura? About your book, all the things that you do. They
Oh,
want to
there I am. Yeah.
contact you in your bookstore.
And there's a link to the book club kit, which contains a link to the playlist, which includes Rex's fabulous song.
Look at this. This is nice. This is well done. This is well
really
done.
pretty, Laura. Yeah.
Wow, my goodness. So if we were going to start with you, Laura, and say, do we just jump right into that book, or should we start from the beginning?
Oh, I think you should jump into the 3 keys. Although I am really proud that the New York Times today had mentioned my work as being one of the most thoughtful books about Alzheimer's. And that book is Stars Go Blue.
Stars Go Blue. Yeah, look at that.
The most recent one and the most fun one is probably the 3 keys.
3 keys, and there you can see the list as we go down, and read about Laura and see some dates that she's out and about, recent publications. Yes, teaching. And oh my, it just goes on. You have a great website, Laura.
Thank you.
That is a good one.
I'll credit my really intelligent social media expert daughter with that.
All right. So well done, daughter.
It's all a family ordeal.
Nice. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, one of my songs that I want to release in the first set of songs next is also about Alzheimer's. It's kind of a Man of La Mancha to Dream the Impossible Dream song, but it's inspired by the last few days of someone with Alzheimer's. So it's a love song, and it's just I don't know. It's not interesting. It just makes sense that all of us rely on our own life experience. But our dad had Alzheimer's. He was a brilliant beef geneticist, animal scientist. We grew up with really with nature loving people who studied nature and science. Our mom is um, a microbiologist and was getting her PhD in radiation physics when I was little. And so, that kind of focus on nature and science and writing and photography, which they both did too. It really, even if you don't notice it, you just by osmosis, you tend to care about the same things. So
yeah.
I feel really lucky that we grew up in such a thoughtful and caring family caring about nature.
That's good. That is awesome to have a family that way. As we're gathering right now, by the way, at Rick's website, ricksdean.com. And I see you've got some films up there that either you filmed or were in.
Yeah, no, some of the things I'm most proud of are fundraising films I've made for nonprofits, that help raise money for little kids' education.
Right.
But yeah, there's one there that I made about the singing group I was in college, and it's been going for about 80 years now. And one of the things, we had a big reunion about 15, 20 years ago. And one of the things that you don't realize is that for me, that being in that singing group, I sang for Princess Grace and
Oh,
Leonard Bernstein and yeah, all sorts of people. Montreux Jazz Festival, traveled the world with them, and it was my most important part of being in college. And it turns out that was true for everybody in it. All
huh.
over the years, the 400 people who've been in the group. And anyway, so I love making, I've done some documentaries. My latest film is called spacebaby.com, Space Baby. There's a really cute trailer, and that's the one about these kids saving the world by reconnecting us with heaven to get a new soul for the earth.
Whoa. Whoa. Yeah, like that. All right. So there's a lot of good things on both of your guys' websites. So rexdean.com. You could check out his and see all that stuff, all his videos and his songs. And of course, you don't want to forget about Rex's sister. So you want to head over to her at laurapritchett.com. And there you can order her books. And I guess, as Laura would say, start off with 3 keys. But, you can go ahead and be a rebel and start from the beginning and work your way up. And so what do you guys do with your time now? Now, since you both live so far apart, do you keep in contact constantly?
Pretty regularly. I'm going out to Colorado in early September to visit the family. I try to get out once a year. I live in LA now. I lived in Boston for 30 years before that. And then Laura travels around a lot more, so I get to see her in LA every year or two. So
Well done. Well done, Laura. Well done, Rex.
yeah, and then we just it's just interesting, the idea that I'm not going to feel good about my life unless I complete another couple films and get 50 of the songs that I love out there in the world. And it's such a strange compulsion, but I do think that songs and books and films can comfort people and make them, find meaning in life and feel more connected. And so it's a strange thing to choose this because it's not super lucrative yet for any of us, but it's just something that feels important. And so that's what I'm doing is working on the marketing for my film, and then working on the recordings of my next couple songs.
Awesome. Awesome. I know that which you just finished talking about, I definitely understand that one. I love this podcast that I do. I mean, it's just one of the few things that I do, and it's the deep desire, that well, it pleases me for one to have this, and then I get to meet great people like you, Rex and Laura, and get to share your visions with other people that are interested in watching this podcast, and eventually they will stumble across it, and it's just it's fabulous to meet people that have a deep rooted desire of a craft that they because we all have something, to share with the world. And so, and I like the fact that I'm able to sit here and have this platform to share not only mine, but yours as well.
Yeah, no, and I know it gets boring, but when you read Laura's book, you will be inspired to get out and see more nature, and you will be inspired to try to protect it. And it's a very difficult thing in this complicated world with all these corporations spending money to convince us otherwise. But we have to push back with our dollars and with our votes, to find people who care about the planet. So that's
Yeah.
the message I'd share.
And the arts can help get us there for sure. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Mother Nature will take so much. And then before she finally shakes her fist and says, I've had enough,
Well, I'll tell you one of Laura's other most recent books is about Mother Nature shaking her fist. It's called Wildfire. What is it called, Laura?
Playing with Wildfire.
Yeah, Playing with Wildfire. And it's this fascinating story of the fires that happened right near her home, which is she moved into this place that looks like paradise, just a couple miles from where we grew up on a farm.
Right.
And fires encroached so close to her house, just burned thousands, hundreds of thousands of acres in Colorado of this gorgeous land, and blackened things. And the rivers just get filled with sludge, so the fish can't breathe. And anyway, her book is fascinating because she writes from the perspective of different animals and different people, a firefighter, a homemaker, a rancher, a horse, a moose, and it's really, there's things you didn't think about, like, oh, I never thought about the effect on that kind of person or that kind of animal. So it's really an interesting book.
I like that. The perspective of various different living beings.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great concept, Laura.
Well, thanks. We have to remember that they have their own stories too. And just because we don't understand their language doesn't mean they're not suffering in their own ways. And we can extend our empathy, I think, through the arts and through story.
I think so. Wow. To have a creative mind like that and then to put it down in words and is by itself something, and
well, and that's you're Laura, that I mean, I think if there's one thing going on the planet right now, it's a massive failure of empathy, especially for people, but also for animals. Most of global warming could be put back, repaired in a lot of ways if we cared about the welfare of animals and ate a little more beans and a lot less beef and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if we had empathy for everyone around the world, we wouldn't be, spending so much money bombing them into smithereens. So it's heartbreaking what we're seeing more and more in the world. And I think it's always been kind of terrible for a lot of people, but like you said, the Earth is actually pushing back, and so many wildfires, so many hurricanes, so many floodings. We've really underestimated how badly we've made things, and there's literally no slowing down for most of our leaders. They just don't care because they're on high ground and they're not going to live forever, and they're getting paid well now. Somehow we need. I mean, I know in whatever 100,000 years, maybe we'll all be gone, and whatever survives. But for right now, we should try to do our best to push back on the just this immense burning of the earth.
Yeah, I agree. I watched a few documentaries on different people and what they suggest what will happen down the road if, we don't start taking care of this earth and ourselves. And that earth will disintegrate everything. In fact, X amount of hundreds of thousands of years, you won't know that we existed at all because everything will disintegrate and be buried so far below that. We never know that it was even people as we are now were ever around. And then I sat there and thought about that and I go, yeah, I guess so. So,
Interesting. Well,
yeah.
there's a Native American idea of looking forward 7 generations, like thinking, what is the benefit, how can we take care of the earth for the next 7 generations? And that's the Butterfly Girls song ends with a line, it's not the kind of world I wanted to leave you. It's not the kind of world I wanted to leave my daughter.
Right.
And, and we all can take responsibility, but honestly, I've always recycled. I've always driven as little as possible. I mean, it is up to us tiny bit as individuals, but mostly as people who should not put up with politicians taking bribes and making terrible decisions. Because it's not the kind of world we want to leave 1 generation, let alone 7.
Amen to that. Well, you too. I'm sure you have a busy day, but I gotta say, I want to thank you for spending a little bit of your time with me. Rex, of course, you want to check out his song, "A Butterfly Girl," and I think the best way for you to really get to know about the artists that we're talking with today, just go to their websites or rewatch this video at rexdean.com is where you can go. And then you can also go visit Laura's at Laura Pritchett with 2T's.com as well. And there you can find out about both brother and sister, Rex and Laura, and listen to Rex's music and read Laura's books. It's a well-talented family you got going on. Does anybody else in your family do stuff, or is it just you two?
My sister Mary is also on the playlist. She was in a punk rock band called the Barbie Army, and one of her songs is on the playlist. So we've got a musician. I think everyone's pretty talented and wonderful in their own way.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of photographers, painters, yeah, but I think Laura's the one who's kind of focused most on it than any of us, and has succeeded far beyond the rest of us. But I'm going to try really hard to catch up.
Yeah, why not? I mean, why not? Family gatherings, well, I'm sure are a whole lot of fun at wherever
That's
you
true.
guys happen to get together. So, well done. And so, Rex and Laura, I just want to say thanks for spending part of your day with me. And I look forward to this reaching millions of people.
I sure hope so. Thanks, John Michael.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us
absolutely.
on.
Hey, so a big shout out to our friend Tracy Harper for bringing both Rex and Laura onto John Michael's Rockbox. And both you, Rex and Laura, I want once again say thanks. And I think down the road, I will pick up some of your books, Laura, and then maybe we can all gather again. And then I can tell you, like, oh my God.
That'd be great.
All right. I'm looking forward to that one. All right. So you too, have yourself a wonderful day. And thanks for spending part of your time.
Thank you so much, John Michael.
All right. It's Rex and Laura are spending part of their time with me here on John Michael's Rockbox. We look forward to seeing you again real soon. And don't forget to go to their websites and order their stuff, because that would really help both of us. So thanks a lot. Thanks for hanging out.